Britney Spears just sold her music catalog for a reported $200 million. The strange part is that she never actually owned it. In December of last year, she signed the contracts. By February of this year, the deal was public, and the headlines all said the same thing. A pop icon cashing in on her legacy, just like the artists before her. But when we pulled the deal apart, the story stopped making sense. Because the masters were never hers. The publishing rights were never hers. The biggest songs of her career were never written by her, and the fortune she generated, somewhere north of $700 million, mostly belongs to other people now. So tonight, we are going to trace exactly what happened to Britney Spears' money in 7 parts. The deal she just signed. The thing she never owned. The empire nobody talks about. The people who quietly took their cut. The number they buried in the paperwork. The money she burned along the way. And the twist that is still chasing her in 2026, even after she won her freedom. Stay with us, because the most important number in this story isn't the 200 million. It's the one almost nobody has done the math on. Let's start with the deal itself. The buyer is a company called Primary Wave. The contracts were signed on the 30th of December, and the news broke on the 10th of February. Every major outlet reported the same figure, around $200 million, though we should be careful here. Neither Britney nor Primary Wave has ever officially confirmed the price. It came from sources, not from a press release, and at least one music industry publication has warned that the reported number is overstated. So who is Primary Wave, and why do they want a catalog from an artist who hasn't released a new album in years? Primary Wave was founded in 2006 by a former record executive named Larry Mestel. In 2022, it locked in a $2 billion partnership with Brookfield Asset Management, an asset manager that controls more than $1 trillion. With that money, Primary Wave went hunting for legends, competing directly with firms like Hypnosis Songs Fund in the race to acquire iconic catalogs. It now holds stakes in the work of Prince, Bob Marley, Whitney Houston, and Notorious B.I.G. The logic behind it is simple. Old, famous catalogs are some of the most predictable money on earth. People stream the hits forever. Movies and ads pay to license them. Biopics get made. Britney has more than 10 billion streams on Spotify alone, generating an estimated $30 million a year. For a buyer, the math is clean. Spend $200 million, earn it back in roughly 7 years, and then collect for decades. It's not a gamble on her comeback. It's a bet on her past. But to understand what Primary Wave actually bought, we have to understand what Britney actually owned. And the answer is a lot less than the word catalog suggests. The day the deal broke, fans everywhere reached for the same comparison. Justin Bieber had sold his catalog for around $200 million, so this must be the same thing. That comparison is wrong, and the difference is the entire story. When Bieber sold, he sold nearly 290 songs, his full publishing rights, his writer's share, and his master recording royalties, including mechanical royalties from physical and digital sales. Bieber wrote his music and owned his publishing, so he had a deep, layered asset to sell. Britney's situation could not be more different. She never owned her master recordings. Sony Music Entertainment, through the old labels Jive and RCA, has controlled her recordings since the late 1990s, and it still does today. And it goes further than the masters. Look at the credits on her biggest songs. On Baby One More Time, she is not listed as a writer. On Oops, I Did It Again, she is not a writer. On Toxic, one of the most iconic pop records of the century, she is not a writer either. These records were built by Max Martin and a circle of professional hitmakers and producers, not by Britney herself. Max Martin alone is responsible for some of the biggest pop songs ever made. and he owns the writer's share and publishing rights that go with them. Britney was the voice and the face, but on paper, she did not own the recordings and she did not write the songs. So what did she sell? She sold the slice that was genuinely hers, her artist royalty streams, and her writer's share on the smaller number of songs where she had one. A real asset, but a far narrower one than the headlines implied. The word catalog made people picture everything. The reality was a thin layer sitting on top of an empire that mostly belonged to a record company. Most of those mechanical royalties, and most performance royalties collected through organizations like ASCAP and BMI, along with the master recordings themselves, flow to Sony and to the writers. Not to her. If that sounds familiar, it should. Taylor Swift spent years fighting in public to own her masters after Scooter Braun acquired her original recordings through his purchase of her former label, Big Machine Records. She re-recorded her entire catalog to take back control. Britney was caught in the exact same trap. The difference is that Taylor got to fight. Britney never did, because for 13 years, someone else was making every financial decision for her. And that is where her money starts to vanish. But before we meet the people who controlled it, we need to look at the one part of Britney's empire that actually printed cash, because even that was not fully hers. Forget the music for a moment. The most profitable business Britney Spears ever touched was perfume. It started in 2004 with a celebrity fragrance called Curious, followed by Fantasy in 2005, both made with Elizabeth Arden. Curious didn't just sell. It became the best-selling fragrance of the entire year, bringing in more than $100 million in its first 12 months. By 2011, more than 500 million bottles of Curious had been sold worldwide. Over the years, Britney's name went on to more than 30 different scents. Together, they pulled in over $1.5 billion in retail sales. At the peak, a bottle of her perfume was selling somewhere in the world roughly every 15 seconds. For one of those early Elizabeth Arden deals, she reportedly took home $52 million. And across the whole fragrance line, her personal earnings are estimated between $75 and $150 million. This was the cleanest money she ever made. Passive, enormous, and built on her name alone. So watch what happened to it. In 2011, the marketing firm that brokered the perfume deals, Brand Sense, sued both Britney and her father for $10 million. The accusation was specific. Brand Sense claimed that Jamie Spears had instructed Elizabeth Arden to pay all the royalties directly to Britney's company, cutting out the 35% commission that Brand Sense was owed. According to the filing, Jamie complained that the commission was simply too high. Hold on to that, because it tells us something important. This was the richest, most effortless income stream Britney had, and her father was already redirecting the cash flow around it. And in that same legal fight, her side argued she wasn't competent to even sit for a deposition. At the time, she was in the middle of a world tour, so the obvious question becomes, who was actually in control of Britney's money? Let's meet them. For 13 years, from 2008 to 2021, Britney Spears did not control a single dollar of her own fortune. A legal conservatorship did. And that conservatorship came with a payroll. What some advocates would later call conservatorship abuse was happening in plain sight, hidden inside quarterly filings that almost no one read. At the top was her father, Jamie. As conservator, he paid himself $16,000 a month in salary, plus another $2,000 a month for office space, plus 1.5% of the gross from her Las Vegas residency. To put real numbers on that, a forensic accountant and former FBI agent named Shireen Ebadi reviewed the financial records. Her conclusion was that Jamie paid himself $6,314,000 between 2008 and the end of 2020. On top of his own pay, he approved more than $30 million in legal fees. Then came the lawyers. Britney's court-appointed attorney, a man named Samuel Ingham, the lawyer she did not choose and was not allowed to fire, earned around $520,000 a year. A co-conservator named Andrew Wallet collected $426,000 a year and walked away with another $100,000 when he resigned. Then came the business manager. A firm called TriStar Sports and Entertainment, run by a woman named Lou Taylor, reportedly took around 5% of Britney's gross income. Court filings later alleged that at least $18 million was pulled out over 12 years. And there's a detail the court was never told at the start. When Taylor was first brought into Britney's world, Jamie personally owed her a $40,000 loan. But the most disturbing line item of all was security. A firm called Black Box received around $6 million from Britney's estate. A whistleblower who worked there later said the firm planted a recording device in her bedroom, taped behind furniture with an extra battery so it would never stop running. They captured roughly 180 hours of audio, including her private conversations with her own attorney. Jamie has denied these claims. But sit with the math for a second. Britney paid $6 million out of her own money to a security firm that was allegedly spying on her. That is the machine. And while it ran, this is what Britney herself was allowed. Her father took $16,000 a month. Britney's personal allowance was around $2,000 a week. The lawyer she never hired earned more in a single year than she was permitted to live on. So we know who got paid. Now for the question this whole story has been building toward. She earned a fortune. How much of it did she actually keep? This is the number they buried. Add up everything Britney Spears earned across her career, and the estimates land somewhere around $700 million gross. Records, tours, Las Vegas, perfume, endorsements, all of it. Look at just the highlights. Her Las Vegas residency, called P.S.B., ran from 2013 to 2017 at Planet Hollywood. It grossed $137,695,000 across 248 shows, and her pay climbed from $310,000 a show to $475,000. In 2012, she was paid $15 million to judge a season of The X Factor, making her the highest-paid judge in singing competition television at the time. Back in 2001, Pepsi paid her between $7 and $8 million. And across her career, she sold more than 100 million records, so she generates around $700 million. And yet, in 2014, court documents valued her entire estate at just $46 million. So where did the rest of it go? Taxes took a large share, as they do for everyone at that level. The machine we just described took its cut every single year, and by some accounting, roughly $290 million vanished into what is only ever labeled as losses, money that left her accounts and was never fully explained. Strip it all down, and you get the number almost nobody says out loud. A woman who earned more than $500 million was, right before this catalog sale, worth somewhere around $40 million. Some of those losses, though, actually have names. So let's walk through the graveyard. Go back to 2002. Britney opened a restaurant in Midtown Manhattan called Nyla, a name stitched together from New York and her home state of Louisiana. On opening day, the restaurant brought in $1,900. It was already $350,000 over budget. The menu lurched from Cajun food to Italian. There were health code violations. By most accounts, Britney visited the place a grand total of 3 times. After roughly 5 months, she pulled out, and creditors filed for bankruptcy against the company that operated it. Then there is the real estate. In 2022, Britney bought a mansion in Calabasas for $11,800,000. In 2023, she sold it for $10,100,000. That is a loss of roughly $1.7 million in about a year. And then there is the money she never even got the chance to lose. After Piece of Me ended, Britney was lined up for a second Las Vegas residency called Domination. The deal would have paid her $507,000 per show, which would have made her the highest paid performer on the entire Strip. It was canceled in 2019, around the time of her father's medical emergency, and she never performed a single night of it. That fortune simply evaporated. Which brings us all the way to 2026. Finally free. In control of her own money for the first time in over a decade. And yet, the machine still isn't finished with her. This year, the catalog sale finally pushed Britney's net worth back up to a reported $130 million. After everything, it looked like the story might end on solid ground. But there's one last twist. The IRS is now pursuing Britney Spears over the tax year 2021. The amount in question is around $721,000, a deficit of roughly $600,000, plus a penalty of about $120,000. The cause is an adjustment to the income of a company called Shiloh Standing Incorporated, an S-corporation tied to her finances. And this is the part that closes the entire circle. That company was set up by her father. As of January of this year, the IRS says its claim stands. Think carefully about what that means. Britney spent 13 years fighting to escape her father's control over her money. She won. The conservatorship was dissolved in 2021. And now, in 2026, a corporate structure that her father built is the thing dragging her into tax court. So let's step back and see the empire that nobody talks about. Britney Spears generated well over $700 million in her lifetime. She sold a catalog she never truly owned. She built a perfume empire that quietly paid everyone around her. And the people who were supposed to protect her money, her father, his chosen managers, his lawyers, his security firm, all took their cut while she lived on a weekly allowance. The real $200 million question was never how much Britney's music is worth. It's how a woman who made more than $500 million ended up owning so little of it, and whether now that she's finally free, she gets to keep what little remains. She signed away her music back in December, but the most expensive thing Britney Spears ever lost was never her catalog. It was the 13 years she spent paying other people to control it.